So this is breaking news. The Trump administration has just flipped the immigration script on its head. An app that was originally intended to bring persons into the United States has now been repurposed to push immigrants out of the country. If this is not a slap in the face of the Biden administration, I do not know what is. The CBP One app that was originally introduced by the Biden administration as a way of streamlining and processing immigrants into the country has now been totally repurposed and called the CBP Home app as a means for persons to self-deport. Now, if it is that you want to know exactly how the CBP Home app actually works, what it means for undocumented immigrants and why they might choose to self-deport, and what this means for America's future, then you must stay tuned. We'll be right back. Life hacks, where we take the next steps needed to go towards our financial freedom and success. So the most recent development is that the Trump administration has now taken what was originally known as the CBP One app and has repurposed it to be the CBP Home app. Now, originally, if you were not aware, the CBP One app was an app, yes, it was an app for cell phones that would allow individuals to register their intention to migrate into the United States. They would enter their personal information and they would wait for an appointment to be set. This measure was intended to streamline the numbers of persons that were approaching the border so that they could know how many persons to anticipate on a daily basis, and therefore you would not have too much crowding at the border and persons could be processed much more easily. It would also keep a track of the individuals that are entering the United States and whatever stage that they were at in terms of their processing to become legal, documented persons within the United States. What has, however, now happened is that the Trump administration, effective today, they have repurposed that app to be called the CBP Home app, that persons would go through the steps of self-deportation. And strict measures have been put in place that if it is that you do not choose to self-deport and you are indeed found, then you can be detained, arrested, and then you can be permanently barred from ever entering into the United States. However, if it is that you choose to self-deport, your information is logged in the system, your option is noted, and you could have a pathway in the future to become a United States resident and to live your American dream. But first, let's look at how the app actually works. Now, if it is that you had the CBP One app before, then you would not have to download the app, you would just have to do an update for the app. You would then create or log into your account. If you're a new user, you would then navigate to the Intent to Depart section within the app, complete the required information that would include your personal information, your alien registration number if you had one, your departure details like the date that you intend to depart and the destination country that you're planning to depart to. You would also upload a recent photograph of yourself, ensuring that the photograph clearly allows your face to be identified and to be verified. You would then review your information and then you would submit, carefully reviewing to ensure that all the information that you entered was accurate. Then you would await for a confirmation notification to state that yes, your app has been received and has been noted in the system, and then you would simply depart the United States to your destination, and this information would be logged with the US Customs and Border Patrol. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? Now, the critical thing to note here is the promise. Now, the promise is that once you self-deport, then you do have the option to return to the United States legally. Of course, you would follow the steps. Either you're going to be filing for a work permit or someone is going to be filing a petition for you. But whatever the option you choose in the future, you being in the United States as an undocumented immigrant, regardless of the amount of time, that slate would be wiped clean and you would not have anything held against you in the future. Again, though, the risk is that if you do not choose that option, and they are stating this quite forcefully, that you will be hunted down, you will be detained, then you will be arrested, and then you will be deported forcefully. So that threat is there against any individual who does not opt to use the app to self-deport. Now, one might say that this is a very creative way to, one, eliminate what had happened during the Biden administration, because when this app was introduced by the Biden administration, up to 40,000 persons were entering the United States on a monthly basis, which resulted approximately 1 million migrants entering the United States for the period of the CBP One app.
And at the White House, President Trump is said to be angry that more people aren't being deported.
So this is now seen as a way to reverse that. Plus, also remember that the Trump administration is not pleased with the amount of persons that are being deported, because they just do not think it is going fast enough. Also, the resources that it would require to eventually deport the number of persons that are here illegally, they do not have the number of resources to deploy. And that would include like the ICE officers, the immigration judges, and remember that a number of immigration judges were fired recently. So therefore, there aren't enough resources to really handle and manage the deportation process that is required to eliminate the number of undocumented persons that are within the United States. So the brilliant idea was thought of that, hey, let's give individuals the option to self-deport, not sitting and worrying and then not wanting to be detained, but actually choose for themselves the way in which they should return to their country. Persons also don't want to go through the humiliating process of being detained and being handcuffed and returned to their country on military jets and face that humiliation once they are back home. At least when they return home through a self-deportation process, they can say that this is an option that they chose and that they were not forcefully deported from the United States. So it just might work, and it might speed up the number of persons that are actually being deported from the United States. Now, bear in mind that the success of this app will depend on whether or not undocumented persons actually use it or not. Certain persons will prefer to stay under the radar, undocumented in the United States, especially if they are working illegally and having an income that they can be sending funds back home and supporting themselves here. Remember as well that there are certain conditions that might exist in their home country that no matter what they are going through in the United States, they are actually in a better position than if they were sent back home or if they returned home voluntarily. So, will it work? It depends on how much they want to actually go back home. Another aspect is that, of course, is going to be facing legal battles, because Democrats, especially realizing that what they had introduced as a streamlining process, the CBP One app, is now being repurposed to get and to push immigrants out. They will be fighting this in the courts, and also the human rights lobbying will be done to argue that due process is not being implemented and these persons are being pushed out without being given due process. At the end of the day though, the Trump administration has taken a migrant entry app and turned it into a self-deportation tool that can then drastically increase the number of persons that are being deported from the United States. Will it work or will it not work? Place in the comment section below if you think that this is an option that the undocumented persons will take up, and if you think it will be successful. I appreciate the time that you have spent with me today. If you know of anyone that might benefit from this information, please share it with them. Thank you for spending this time with me, and see you in the next video.